am so excited to be back here with my next solo episode. I have so much that I want to share. I think last time, my last solo episode was the first time that I sort of tried doing this unscripted. And honestly, I really like how it turned out. And I felt like I was able to be more of myself and to just share super candidly. Of course, I have a topic, I have some notes, I have an outline, but I am just going to share really candidly today with a topic that actually picks up a little bit where we left off. So, the last solo episode that I did was about self doubt. And near the end of the episode, I actually started talking about investing in yourself. I think I even mentioned that I'd love to do an entire episode about that. So this episode is not just that, but what it's really going to be about is, you know, knowing when it's time to actually walk away from opportunities that don't serve you, to double down and bet on yourself and invest in yourself. I've chosen this topic because a lot of people I talk to are either unhappy in their jobs, in their current situations, in their relationships, the partnerships that they're in career wise, whatever it is. And they may even know that those relationships won't serve them in the long run, but they don't really know how to get out of it. They have this gut feeling that, okay, maybe this isn't the right thing, but there's some fear around leaving the opportunity. The opportunity might actually even be super lucrative. Like it might be, monetarily really exciting, but there's some part of it or an element of it that doesn't feel authentic, that doesn't feel aligned, that doesn't feel like that's the path they're supposed to take. But because of the monetary, opportunity, they stay. Or because of the comfort of the relationship, whether it's a marriage or a boyfriend, whatever it is, they stay because on the other side of that is the unknown. And even though it may be more exciting on the other side, it actually may be even so much better on the other side. It's the unknown. So you don't really know. So you stay in what you know, you stay in what is comfortable, even if it's actually uncomfortable. Like that's the ironic part of it. You stay in things that don't really make you happy for too long. So this episode is a little bit about kind of knowing when it's time to walk away from jobs, partnerships, relationships, or even opportunities, like I said, that won't serve you in the long run. In addition to that, I want to chat about why, as an entrepreneur, your belief in yourself needs to be very strong. So strong that you kind of look at yourself as an investment that will yield a higher return than a traditional job or even investment you might put on your, balance sheet, whether it be real estate or the stock market. You have to know that you as an entrepreneur can make it and deliver higher returns. And I'm not just talking about monetary returns. So we're going to dive into that as well. And then I wanted to share kind of to cap off, and I'll probably do a full episode just on this, but I did want to touch on, why we need to look at spending money to fund our own dreams and desires for ourselves as an investment and not an expense. So really this episode is about knowing when to walk away to really double down and bet on yourself. So let's dive in. Let's start with that first point of knowing when to walk away. So in preparation for this episode, just kind of did a Google search to see reasons why it's good to leave a job or when it's time to leave a job or something like that. And, the first entry on Google search was 10 good reasons for leaving a job. And everything mentioned very, actually, I'm going to pull it up because I think it's really important to see what the internet is saying about this topic. So, you know what? I had just let it go. So I will pull it up now. All right. Okay. So Google tells me these are the 10 good reasons for leaving a job. If there's a company downturn, acquisition or merger, company restructuring, if you're trying to leave for career advancement, career change to a new industry, professional development, working in a different environment, better compensation, different leadership, or family circumstances. And you know what? I don't disagree with Google. I actually think that those are all important reasons why you might consider leaving a job. But what I think is missing from that list, and what I personally think is actually far more important than any of the items on that list, which this list doesn't include, anything about happiness, fulfillment, following your true desire, you know, leaving toxic work situations, trusting your gut, and quitting something to follow your dreams. So not quitting because, you're just trying to advance your career or whatnot, to truly follow your dreams, to listen to that inner voice that says, this isn't for me. It's not just because there was a merger or acquisition or you want more pay. Actually, often when you quit, you're leaving and you don't have your next thing lined up, and you don't necessarily, have the compensation you would have from your job. Usually you have zero. You might be going from, multiple six figures or seven figures even to zero. But you're leaving for a reason that, in my mind, is so much better than those other 10. Sorry, Google. But when you're leaving to say, I want to focus on my happiness, I want to focus on doing something that I believe is my highest and best use to give back to society, to the community, to do something of value, to leave something that was maybe really toxic, that wasn't serving my mental health, to follow a desire and to trust your gut. We often get into roles or jobs, and sometimes the writing is on the wall a few months in, and we're like, well, it's just a few months. Like, I'll stick this out. I'm new here. Maybe once I know a little bit more and have a bit more experience, or I get to know the people I work with better, things will turn around. But sometimes that's true. I can tell you from my own experience, I've had four, maybe five, six corporate jobs prior to becoming an entrepreneur. And there was two out of that list that I knew within probably the first week or two that something didn't feel right. One of those opportunities, I stayed for 5 years. And the other one, I was out within a year. But I knew coming in that something about the corporate culture, the people I was working with, the work that I was doing wasn't going to be fulfilling enough. And when you're coming into a new job, you are excited. You went through this long interview process and you really thought that this is going to be your dream job. Maybe it's significantly more pay. That was my thing a lot of the times. I was like, oh, this is such a good promotion. It was a higher title. It was at a company doing exciting things. So all of it prior to day one just seemed like this is a dream, right? I'm leaving, I get more pay, better title, cool work. And then you come in and something is off. Often, in my case, it was the corporate culture and some of that, the leadership. So yes, Google did say that's a good reason to potentially leave, but it wasn't just that. I would stay and I would slowly start to realize, like, okay, I could do this job. Often I was like, I could do this job in my sleep, not to be cocky or anything, but after a while, it just wasn't fulfilling. So the reason for leaving became more about knowing that me as a person had more to deliver than the confines of the job description and the four walls that I was in this corporate role that didn't leave any space for creativity, that didn't leave any space for actually putting time towards the things that I wanted to, the talents that I wanted to continue to harness, the ones that I wanted to maybe start, or like, things that I wanted to do that I didn't have any experience in doing, but the job didn't allow for that. A lot of jobs, sometimes, especially as women, we go into jobs where we already know 70 to 80 to 90% of the job. And so there's not actually any room to learn new things. Or maybe there is, but it's not at the capacity that you would be learning if you were just, maybe doing something on your own. We'll get to that. Um, I think too, when you stay in those situations, whether it's even a relationship, a romantic relationship, or a corporate relationship, whatever it may be, if it is toxic and if it is not serving you, you start to kind of lose confidence in yourself. You start questioning yourself because maybe the people around you are questioning you, or they don't believe in you, they don't have faith in you, or maybe they're literally belittling you or putting you down. So you start to lose confidence in yourself and you start questioning yourself. If that is happening in relationships that you are in, those are not supportive relationships or work environments. Ideally, and I know this, I'm saying this ideally, whether it's working for yourself, working in a company, working with a partner, whatever it is, the people who you surround yourself with. I mean, we've all heard that the 5 people you surround yourself with most, really can have such an influence on you. So now imagine you're going somewhere 8 hours a day, or if you're in a relationship, it's, 24/7 that you have this relationship and it's not supportive. That is a real signal that it's time to go in my mind. I'm not saying don't work on it. I'm not even saying don't go for therapy or counseling, like do the things. But if you are in a place where you're constantly doubting yourself, questioning yourself, yes, that's another thing too. You probably need to get some coaching and stuff to help build your own confidence muscles so that the people around you don't have as much influence on you. But it is hard to do when you have a constant daily toxic environment that you are waking up in, or waking up and going to work for 8 hours. So I think that's another real signal that you need to, like, I've gone through that and I maybe stayed too long. Like the one that was 5 years, by the time I decided to leave, I'll be really honest. And by the time I actually gave my resignation, I was miserable. I was miserable. I was a shell of a person. And the day that I didn't have to go to that job, the very next day where I didn't have that kind of environment around me, the clouds started to kind of disappear. It was like this huge weight lifted. I didn't like, yes, I had my next opportunity lined up. I actually had a month off between, and that was by design after working, for 12 years at that point, where I was like, okay, I'm going to take a month off between jobs this time. It's great. But I didn't realize how miserable that environment was making me. So I really think that when you are in that, sometimes I get that we have financial considerations, but sometimes it's not worth it to stay, because what you're losing in the process is yourself and your happiness. And there are lots of opportunities out there, other jobs, other opportunities that can be far more fulfilling, far more supportive, partners and people around you that will support you in your dreams. So that's another reason why I think it's, time to start considering, walking away. The others would be if you don't trust your boss or your partners that you're with. If there isn't trust, I actually believe it's such an important element in any relationship, including the corporate relationships, because you are spending a lot of time with that person. Your career, your livelihood, your future is potentially in that person's hands, or, it's in both your hands and theirs in some ways, especially if you're in a corporate job, that, there is some influence that they have over your future. And if you don't have trust, I really wouldn't stay. Because you're now in this kind of like questioning mode. Like, does that person have my back? Do they not? Will they, do something that will be against me? Like that constant inner film reel or voice reel that goes through our head of, okay, like all the situations that could happen because you don't trust the person. Think about it this way. You've been in relationships where you do trust your partner, right? And how great that is, like to wake up with this confidence, or you go into a work environment where you really trust your boss, and you not only trust them, but you're like, they have my back and they are going to support me. And they are going to actually help me achieve on the goals that I have. That is a supportive and maybe in a romantic situation, loving relationship. If you do not have that, I'm sorry, but it is time to consider why you're still in it, or if there are things you can do to change that. Um, Another reason, if you feel stuck or trapped, like that feeling of stuckness, like every day is the same, it's monotonous, I'm not happy, I'm trapped, I don't see a way out. I sometimes the moment you remove yourself and walk away from those situations, the stuckness goes away, the opportunities, you start to see them. You start to see what's outside of just the four walls that you've been maybe keeping yourself in. But it does sometimes take walking away, leaving, you know, whether it's that you leave or you get fired or you get, divorced, whatever it is, sometimes when you're out of it, you're like, oh, there's so much more out here. But before that happens, you always have agency to leave on your own terms as well, right? Um, I just think that I'm not, and I want to say to you, like, I am not saying to just cut and leave at the first sign of trouble. Um, but you do also need to know when you've maybe stayed too long. Like, if things are not changing and you're waking up, like Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and hoping things will change. I think it's something like that. If you're waking up every day thinking this is going to be different, but you're not really doing anything to change that, you've maybe stayed too long. Um, for me personally, as I've grown, I've just really learned to trust, my inner voice a bit more. And that comes with, I don't know if it's age or wisdom or just actually listening to that inner voice a little bit more. When I was younger, though, I will say that the voice was like a whisper, just a little bit of a whisper. And as I've kind of kept going, it's become like yelling, almost like an inner yelling that no, this is not the right thing. And sometimes it's really interesting because it's happening when everything seems okay. Like outwardly, everything seems okay. Your business is doing well, you're doing well in your career, have fun with your colleagues, you go to networking events and you're going to conferences, you're making a really good salary, like everything's okay. But like there's this voice saying like this just isn't it. There's more for you out there. Um, and as you learn to trust that inner voice more and more, rather than maybe waiting for the inevitable writing on the wall of, that the voice that's like, this just isn't it, but you stay. And then 2 years down the road, you're like, oh yeah, this wasn't it. And now you can see it more clearly. You can start to make changes before those 2 years, right? You don't have to wait for that inevitable writing on the wall, especially if you know deep down that, there's something more out there. And maybe you just aren't ready yet to accept or face what will actually happen when you walk away from a situation. But I just want to say, I don't think you should see walking away as a failure. Rather, you should really see it as an investment in your future. And we've talked a lot about failure already, but specifically when you walk away from things, we might feel like I quit, I gave up, I left too soon. And we automatically go into saying, wow, I failed at that. That when you walk away from situations that don't serve you, it is not a failure. It is an investment in your future. It is an investment in the possibility of what could be, the potential that you have within you being unlocked, a brighter path forward, a happier, more supportive, more loving path forward. And I just really think that it's important to make that distinction, right? Walking away or quitting is not failure. Okay. I think, we've talked enough about that we really need to drive that home at this point. And just remember though, like even when you walk away, right? Let's say you were in this job or this relationship and you were there for 5 years. Often it's not that the whole 5 years was bad. Okay. Let's be real. Sometimes it's just the last year, the last 6 months or whatnot. That was the case, with my marriage. It wasn't all bad. But But, near the end, it was just like this deep knowing of this wasn't it. It wasn't serving me. Neither of us were happy. There was a lot going on without, getting too personal here. But guess what? That relationship, I look back at it as one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. It really taught me a lot. So each experience that you have, even when you walk away, it's actually the walking away and what happened that teaches you a lot about yourself. And that the next time that you get yourself into a situation like that, you'll be able to spot the signs a little bit more early, or maybe you'll be more discerning or wiser when you enter the next thing, so that you now have all of these new criteria or qualifiers of what matters to you in the next thing that you do, the next job, the next business opportunity, the next relationship or partnership that you get into. So I'll give you this example where this was just maybe about a year ago, over a year ago now, where I had this really exciting opportunity. So I had started off on my entrepreneurial journey, and I'm actually going to get into what the first couple of years as an entrepreneur can be like, but they're tough. And you start out and you have these big dreams, and then you kind of realize, okay, it's going to be a little harder than I thought, especially if you're a solopreneur and you're trying to do a lot of things on your own. You're like, man, I have these big things I want to do, but I don't have the resources to do them. I don't have people around me or the team to get some of the things I want to do off the ground. So I was, at that point, about a year and a half into my entrepreneurial journey, when an opportunity came up to partner with a group and actually to go and be an entrepreneur in residence with that group. And what that essentially means, fancy term for like internally sort of building a business with them, co-building. And what would happen on the other side of that, which was sort of the 3 to 6 month time frame, would be that if the venture was to go forward, I would become the CEO of that venture, and they would be a majority shareholder in the venture, and we'd continue sort of building the business together, but go and raise outside capital and whatnot. And what happened with me with that situation was, when it came down to the final kind of before we were going to spin out into this venture, so I was still sort of in the contract or consulting period as an entrepreneur in residence. Something happened within the partnership that I was like, this just doesn't feel right. I do not see myself building this business with these partners into the long term, because of something that they did where they went against contractual things that we had talked about. And maybe they weren't signed, but they had been shared, and they were verbally and writtenly, and there was Excel documents and everything to support what we were building together and how we were building it and what shares we had. And I had been working for 3 to 6 months under that arrangement. And so I had, this idea for me, when you're working with people and you're talking about it as a partnership and you're actually 50-50 partners in that there's this like good faith arrangement, right? So personally, I was just like, okay, I was all in. I was like, this is great. Something happened to change that, to change the partnership in their favor, to not make it anymore an equal partnership. And while there was an opportunity to change everything back, there actually was. I brought it up with them. I spoke to them about it. I said, hey, what's up? Like we talked about this. Now you're changing it to this. And they were actually ready to change back, interestingly enough, which was all good and well. This is actually not about them. This was about an inner voice for me saying, do you want to get into a partnership where that can happen, where the trust got broken, where the good faith agreement changed? If it can change 3 to 6 months in, what happens 5 years in, 10 years in? And at the same time, I had to be really true to myself of, was this the opportunity that I wanted to devote all of my, put all my eggs into one basket, and for the next 5 to 10 years, make that my future? So simultaneously, I was sitting there being like, are these the people I want to do it with? And is this the thing that I want to do? And my gut at that point was screaming. That's the one where I was like, it was screaming. It wasn't a whisper. It was saying, get out. It was telling me to get out. And what's interesting about that was At that point, yes, I was making some fees and I was doing some consulting gigs and I had some money coming in. But this was an opportunity to, at that point, we were sort of valuing the company at an amount that would deliver me personally a value of $3 million. Obviously, that's when you that's just a value that we had assigned and you'd have to build it and it would grow from there. But to be honest with everyone here, that number was not a number that had been on my radar in any corporate job, let alone in the first year and a half as an entrepreneur. So here I was with this voice telling me this inner voice yelling, like I said, yelling. It was over a course of a weekend where I had to make a decision of what I was going to do. Was I going to stay in this and let them kind of go back to the terms that we had agreed on and move forward? But knowing that trust and the faith had kind of been broken. And to me, I really feel like when you're building a business with someone, yes, people say business is not personal. To me, it's personal. To me, it's about the relationships. It is about the trust. It is about the good faith. I want to build a business with people like that. Anyone I brought onto my team or will bring onto my team, that is what I want the relationship to be. Trust and faith and honesty and, integrity with our word. And because I know those are things that I value, I had to say, you know what, this person is doing this, or this group is doing this in their favor. They didn't even really seem to think anything's wrong with the changing of the terms. And so I just was like, okay, we don't have the same values. We're no longer aligned. It's not personal. It's just a different way of doing business. Simultaneously, like I said, I had to say, do you really want to do this for the next 5 to 10 years? So I actually decided to walk away from an opportunity that was a $3 million opportunity. That wasn't, there's still a salary associated with, but that was my share of what we were valuing the company at that point, which would have grown from there after future funding rounds and as we built the company. So it was a $3 million plus opportunity that I walked away and decided to take an opportunity of zero. Guess what that opportunity of zero was? Me. I said to myself in that day, that whole weekend, Farrah, do you not believe that you will be able to deliver a higher return on an investment, and the investment being yourself, than $3 million? And my answer was yes. My answer was, Farrah, and it's not about the money. But I knew that in me, and I know that in me, is the ability to build a business far beyond that and to invest in others and invest in companies. That's my goal that will deliver that, and not just deliver it from a monetary standpoint, deliver it from a point of satisfaction, of joy, of being able to be of service to others and build something of value for others on my terms, with the people who I want by my side, who want to be by my side, and that we want to partner together, where our values are aligned. That is the business that I wanted to build. Did I see that business in front of me yet? It wasn't built yet, but it was in my head. And I have the faith that it is happening. And sometimes as a good coach of mine, has been hammering in to us, it's a group coaching program that I'm a part of. And she said, you have to have you have to have the faith in yourself before the evidence shows up. Something like that. I'll get it right next time. And that's what it was. I had the faith. The evidence of it wasn't there yet, but I had the faith. And so, you know what? I realized that I have actually still just been talking about point one here, which was knowing when to walk away. And so I, like I said, I shared an example of when I decided to walk away and the reasons I decided to walk away and all the reasons that I think you should really be considering when you're deciding whether you're going to walk away from something. Now, what I will say is that I had 2 more points, which the next one was, having faith in yourself, which I just started to chat about, and also investing in yourself. And guess what? At this point, based on how long I've been chatting, I think each one's going to be its own episode. So we will stay tuned for, the part 2 and part 3 of this continuation of this theme, because I think part 1 is the walking away. Part 2 is having the faith that there is something better on the other side, having the faith in yourself. And then part 3 will be really knowing when and how and why it's important to invest in yourself. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, I'm always looking for feedback. I hope that you're enjoying this new style that I've been working with. And before we totally cap off, I actually did have one quote that I wanted to leave you with, I guess, before we cap off, because I kind of started doing this quote thing. So I actually have 3, but I'm going to pick one right now. And I think this one is really good. So it's from Tony Gaskins, and it says, invest in yourself to the point that it makes someone else want to invest in you. And I think it's a good point to leave off on, because we're going to dive more into that. But me walking away from that situation was the first step in me investing in myself. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.